which leads me to your to your work.
Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely. So thank you, everybody. First, it's a pleasure to just come speak with people. I love coming to talk, and especially open forums. So I'm going to leave time after this little session. I did a recording inside VR. I'm going to kind of just do a quick live tour, but I did the recording so I didn't cast and mess that, you know, how sometimes casting goes awry. So we're going to kind of audio our way through a video that is in VR. So just a quick overview. I'm Jay Schnoor, CEO of VEDX Solutions. VEDX stands for Virtual Education, Deployment, and Exploration. I am not here to sell you anything. I'm here to talk about what we've done, what our experience has been, where we're at today in helping educators, and where I would love to see both the future of education and educators jump on board to take us there. And so that's sort of what we're looking at today. So as I begin, I want to say that, you know, as far as our company goes, I got involved in this because I myself was first started out in a graduate teaching fellowship for international development. Then I got into working with ESL and ESL teachers, and then started recruiting students from all over the world, 52 countries, to go to the US and the UK for university. And at that time during recruitment, there was a lot of online degrees, and they were not good at all in terms of accessibility and learning and all of that, right? So I started to formulate a plan. Virtual reality, let's start talking with educators. Let's think about how we can have a new language learning platform for ESL learners. That's what kind of gave rise to VEDX. And so our company, Virtual Education, Deployment, and Exploration, we were on the verge. Do we do nonprofit or profit? We knew we were selling to education. That's not it's not a great profit model, as we all know, right? So schools struggle with that, and we're still struggling with trying to figure out if we want to actually pivot to a foundation, because really at the heart of what we want to do is help educators. And I don't feel, and I'm sorry if there's any other companies out on here today, but I don't feel like a lot of companies sit side by side with educators and say, okay, here's virtual reality. Now, how do we affect change management going forward? Like, we know virtual reality has some great tools, and we know that students will use it, and we love the experience. I've seen so many students put it on for the first time, take a dissection course, and they are blown away. They're like, oh my gosh, I wish this was in my school. I wish every Friday it was there. I wish a teacher would have assigned me this as homework. Like, that to me just ignites like their curiosity. It ignites my excitement. Now, where did VEDX come in is we didn't get into this to try to make a whole bunch of things and sell them. We got in this to try to bridge the gap between schools who see all these app providers out there and the app providers that are trying to figure out how to help the schools get hardware, integrate, put it on Wi-Fi, help everybody train, help with change management, help with the 5-year strategy. That is VEDX. So virtual education, deployment, and exploration is where we come in. Now, we are also working on a couple of native apps, but more as a help to the students. We have a college exploration in 360. They're free. And a job shadow in 360 that goes with every deployment for high schools. So that helps students just like doing those things. And we want to grow those two things to be very large. So in the library, a student can do the college exploration and job shadows in VR, and then work with the careers teacher to say, hey, that was cool. I want to do welding. What's my training? You know, that kind of thing. Now, that's one goal for us. The second goal is I want to see, and I missed that first 5 minutes of what you were talking about. But in order for this to truly be a tool for educators going forward, and a tool for a school system that doesn't have a lot of time to create content and doesn't have a lot of resources to make that subscription model be sustainable, the key for us is to build an app in the future, or now for the future, that allows teachers to plug and play content, plug and play lessons on a PC, literally placing things, putting it together, and then sending it to the headset. Now, we are partnered with a company called Facilitate. We have another webinar on Wednesday where I can't go over everything right now today, but if you wanted to join on Wednesday too, we're going over this content builder that we're exploring as a partner with Facilitate. It helps you build a lesson, etc. Now, in the long run, getting those lessons to students, a lot of educators, you guys are all here because you're excited about virtual reality. Not every educator is excited about it, but we just need to make it easier. Because the point is the students will be using it. And if a school ignores the fact that WebXR and VR training and AR and MR is not going to be a piece of the future, it's not a fad, it's here. Just because the headsets today, and I'm sure I'm speaking to the choir here, but I just kind of set in the context before we take a tour. The headsets today are like the Motorola's of the 90s. They're heavy, they're bulky, they're sweaty. Like, I remember having a cell phone up to my ear like this and thinking, nobody's going to carry those around, right? Educators today say, that's too big, too bulky, and too hard to deploy. Well, that's going to change. I mean, we have the Apple announcement coming out on June 8th. And after that, we've been waiting for something to accelerate this. We all know that Meta hasn't done the best job in helping teachers. So that's, again, why VEDX was born. But we're going to continue to just be there for educators, be there to help schools bring this stuff in. Now let's take a look at some of the stuff that we are working on. And then I'd like to open up a Q&A about content development, about lesson planning, and about what some of you have as suggestions as educators going forward. So before I begin, any question from what I said from the crowd right now? Yet? No. Okay, good. Kind of like to spread the questions out a little bit, so give some time here and there. So, number one, when a school says, I want to bring in virtual reality, most of them have tried a couple of headsets. There's a champion teacher, the tech director is overwhelmed, and they're not sure how they're going to keep the students in a safe space if they're not being monitored. So, number one, I'm going to share screen. Screen share. And sound. And here we go. So, we partnered with ManageXR before they were ManageXR, actually, when they were Mighty MDM and just growing and becoming bigger. In that partnership, what we worked out is that schools can come to VEDX, and as we deploy, we set up the entire school account. So we set up the Meta institutional emails, not associated with the specific student. We don't need the school to set up the emails and cause a bunch of, internal tech discussions. We set up the emails, we configure the headsets, we get them all ready to go. We ask the school what apps they want to put on there and get those ready to go. We have a catalog of 28 free educational apps that all sit in what we call the VEDX classroom, dealing with different content. And then we have a few that you can subscribe to and a few that come pre-programmed. Now, I keep saying we, VEDX, but really what we did and continue to do is scour the education apps that are out there. So at the end of this in our Q&A, if you haven't heard me mention a partner and we should be partnered with them to bring it into the VEDX classroom for a school, please bring that to my attention at the end of this. But we've met with a lot of providers, a couple of providers that we've had current discussions with. Prisms VR, if you guys haven't seen that, it's fantastic for math. They're just sort of getting their feet going for a bigger scale. But anyway, back to this. So once the headsets arrive at the school, they can all be managed by one PC, one tech director. This is the device experience. So when a student puts on the headset, inside of the headset, they only see what the school has in the configuration. So you can see the apps here. But also, if they wanted to load up a 360 video, the 360 video looks like an app. So you don't have to go through a browser to get to the 360 or YouTube VR to get there or to have a player. You can load that directly in as a school, push that content. And in fact, if you have a physical classroom and you want to start that app all at once, you start it. You hit push and all the headsets start that app. So it's a necessity, in my opinion, for any deployment at any school. Now, in addition to that, if that school has paid for that with a grant, they get all of the statistics of the usage and the headset that they can report back under the analytics dashboard. So how much those devices have been used, which devices are on there, and the different configurations that you can set up. I was just using Linfield as we had just gotten their business department going. And Linfield will be recording 360 videos of their wine making for the business department and having students then experience those 360 videos. Now, then what do you do with those 360 videos in terms of creating content? I'll take that on next. Any questions about the device management system for deployment? Just please raise your hand. I can't see everybody's hand, so if anybody can help me moderate, that'd be great. Or just come off.
Moderate as soon as any questions come in.
Okay, fantastic.
Yeah,
fantastic. Yeah. Just feel free to interrupt me and tell me somebody's asked a question. So yeah, so when the school gets their 25 headsets, they come again ready for Wi-Fi. They're in the UVC protected case. And the most successful deployments we've seen is a champion teacher that understands how to use us. They're added as a director. And then we are here for the entire support of the contract. So whether you're running the Engage app or the any of the apps that we put into the configuration, we are there to help with that during the school year, including strategizing content development. And the most successful schools get their students involved. So when we get to content development, I've had a couple of schools make competitions of different subjects that they've asked the students to bring in 3D objects, 360 video, put a form quiz in there, and then run it for the class as their semester project. Now, what that does takes a lot of pressure off you or as an educator to deliver content, and it gets the entire class involved in content creation that you keep as an institution inside of your space. So that's the overall management system we're using to deliver those apps. And it takes away a lot of the headache of setting up each individual MetaQuest at the school. Now, I wanted to just kind of share this really quickly. Some of the schools are trying to deliver let's see, I'll pick this and pick camera. Trying to deliver totally virtual, right? And maybe they don't want to be in the virtual reality headset 8 hours, right? But they also, Zoom can be a little bit sterile. And so what we have here is this new platform that is being beta tested, Meet on Bubble. This is a partner of ours since the beginning to create the bridge between 2-dimensional classrooms and 3-dimensional worlds. So you can see that I put a kind of a 3-dimensional background there. This 2-dimensional classroom for virtual delivery can hold up to 50 people. If you're a square, you're a teacher. And if you're a circle, you're a student. And you can, the teacher is the only one that has the megaphone capability. So you can really deliver a 2-dimensional class. This is being used for proctoring, etc. Now, before we jump into virtual reality content delivery, in each of these rooms, teachers can load in resources, put the syllabus, put the LMS link, put any displays that happen through the semester. And when the students come back, this is, as you can see, this is a hyperlink with a passcode. So it's not a call like a Zoom. It's literally a 2-dimensional, it is literally a classroom space that stays active and live So 2 students can always jump back in here off hours and talk. And you can create up to 50 different rooms for your school, science, math, whatever classes you're running, etc. And then you can put in your virtual reality deep links. So if I click on this deep link, it goes over here, and it's going to open up the Quest headset to a very specific space of an app or a deep link app a platform that your school is using. So it allows for deep links to be put inside of the classroom, and eventually I'd like to see this 2-dimensional virtual delivery classroom be linked directly into the 3-dimensional world, but that's a process. So stay tuned, keep an eye on this and what happens with this. But this is great for any of you that are trying to run virtual education. It's a much better alternative than most of the other things I've seen out there to do that. We always have the Zoom alternative because sometimes you want to go off and do a private call, so you just click on it and it sends you into the Zoom room. Okay, so that's the 2-dimensional classroom. Now let's jump into content creation and some exploration of the apps in the 3D world. And for that, I'm going to jump us over to the media player. Now, like I said, I put on my headset this morning and did this prior so that we didn't run into Wi-Fi issues during a live webinar, which I hate. So I'm going to go ahead and hit play, but I'm going to pause it and talk a little bit in different spots. So Kelly, I can see you on my screen, so give me a thumbs up to make sure you can hear it. Sound?
Okay, well, welcome to your brief iLRN tour. We're going to show you a few different applications for education. We are VEDX Solutions, and we're partnered with over 22 different EdTech providers. Right now, you can see the Oculus Store up here. But what we do for the VEDX Classroom is take all of the educational apps and put them into a managed space. You can see here I've got Engage in here, Future Class, 3D Organon. I've got our own University Explorer, Remio, Victory XR, Victory XR Labs, and Victory XR Direct. I've got Soft Skills and Body Swap, Meditation, Maloka, VEDX Career Journeys, and a few more other dissections, Job Simulator, and Work Window. So what I wanted to show you first is
now I'm gonna
private
pause here. We're gonna come into this space. If you guys haven't visited Remio, I highly recommend it. Lance gave a talk on this 2 hours ago, so I'm not gonna spend too much time here. Remio came into the space to create social platforms for team building at companies. And so when we met with Remio, I asked Yost, I said, Yost, can we take your platform and deliver it to every school as a private campus so that the students have a space to have of their own? Teachers can join, but nobody from the public can join into that server. And the students can play fun games that are acceptable, like nonviolent paintball and defend the fortress and team maze and escape room. And there's like a new geo quiz one, totally fun. But it gives the students a space also to present. So if a student is making a 3D object, like you've assigned students to make some 3D objects, they can also show those in here and make them become a part of their campus. So I'll show you the
campus for their school, allows the students to play sports, to have club meetings on, and to even give displays for their fellow classmates or to play some games.
I'm going to jump here. There you go.
And in the Remio space, you can leave a hologram for anybody that visits you in your space. As you can.
What's really cool is that hologram I'm talking about here. You can have multiple holograms in there. Like if you're an educator and you wanted to build a quick experience for students, you can build a series of holograms that walk them through steps. This one here is just a welcome, so I'll show you that.
Here, this will be me. Welcome to the VEDX campus space. I hope you enjoy your time here. Explore the whiteboard, head back and explore the portal doors, look at the screens, and check some of the other spaces out in your menu icon on your wrist. And then you can adjust how you look, my fellow students or teacher. So every one of our VEDX classrooms comes with a campus.
So here is in terms of a dry board and collaboration tool for the students, if you would assign them group work. I see I put the Predator here. I love this little 3D asset. I just put him in here for fun. But my point being is that I saved him easily by bringing up my environment tool that I'll show you next.
For that school. I just added those guys in there just to show that we can customize and put 3D objects in that editing space. I also have over here another dry board and then private room for quiet conversations or club meetings. And then a leaderboard of who's leading up on the games, etc. And then portal doors here. You can see there's a lot of different team games.
Each of these portal doors can be customized by the educator. They can either go to one of the team games in-app, or they can go out to another app that's in the VEDX classroom.
We got Geo Quiz and Tower Defense and Team Puzzle Race, a Team Escape room. And then you can put in some of the other apps from the VEDX classroom inside here as portal doors to go and jump over to them. And then I have the presentation screen right here. And so all really exciting stuff that you can add in.
Any brand name you see as far as an education app is somebody that we have partnered with as VEDX to bring that app into schools.
And so this was a 3D environment that was loaded up in here and as a personal request by one of the clients, and it's just kind of a retreat space, so it's not.
Obviously, this is nothing that special. You can find these everywhere, but the idea is that if you have a 3D space that you want put up into Remio, it can happen with the Unity, and then you can have a customized space in here.
It doesn't have all of the functionality of some of the other event spaces to jump around, but just to kind of show you that it can be done. And then like if I jump back over to Titan, and again, this is all branded for the school, so the school, it feels like the school's campus, and you can have some 3D objects to place and save in the space going forward. So the reason I wanted to show this today for the iLRN is that a lot of high schools want a place where they're not going to be bothered by anybody in the public. Teachers want to feel like as long as they're in that server space, they're only going to run into kids from their school. You can see I put our VXR logo up there, but that can be the high school logo. It says how many people are online, and you can see some of the statues that we have placed around the room here in our own campus space. And you can leave a hologram.
Yeah, so each of those statues, you could put a hologram talking about the significance of that in the in learning. The idea here is that there's just a lot of tools that you can use for a private space. And there are various content creators out there. Spatial, which I personally enjoy, but not for high school, because you can't have a private server that the kids can't leave and go off to a public one. And so that makes it tough for high school. For college, Spatial is great. So if you're in a university, because Spatial is so WebXR accessible, it's also one that that I advocate for.
For each of those things talking about the uniqueness of that statue. So again, another presentation room, another space to have portal doors.
I'm gonna jump through there.
Engage is a partner of VEDX, but so is Victory XR, and so is Optima Education.
Now, many of you have already probably seen some stuff in Engage. You've seen a lot of hype and a lot of that. I see Engage as a beautiful creator tool that both Victory XR run their academy on, and Optima Ed, which you've seen stuff for K through 8 run their platform on. We're partnered with both of them for content. So it just, and sorry for some of you that already know this, but Engage is like the WordPress of VR, right? Like you can build your content as an enterprise on Engage and then have a subgroup and bring schools in. And that's really what Victory XR Academy does. And they have done they've probably got the most extensive library of content for high school is Victory XR right now inside of Engage.
You'll see those in separate places, right? So just think of them as content libraries in Engage, but Engage is the main platform that those content libraries exist in. Now, Victory XR has more than just the Victory XR Academy on Engage. They have the Victory XR Labs, and they have the Victory XR Direct, all available for the VEDX classroom. I'm
going to pause here. So if well, I'll do a show of hands at the end, but if you've never created content in here, I'm just going to explore this really quick. So when you jump in here, you can join a session. And if you join a session, somebody else has already given a join code, you jump in, and I'm sure this is something you guys have all experienced. You've joined a session, you've seen somebody talk, you've given a live Engage presentation, etc. You can, as an enterprise teacher, you can start your own session and send that join code out and bring a bunch of students in and run the session with your host tools. That content button allows you to see content that you've created or that your group has created, and content that you want your students to see. Now, the thing I like about Engage is that it doesn't require code to create a pretty amazing lecture, class, or experience that students can walk through step by step. And they can do that through a variety of different engagement tools that you put in there, like a click button to start something, a light space that you walk over and it begins a piece of that content and it stops when you walk off. I know Engage is currently, and I know it's all the buzz, so I have to say it, they're currently working on getting an AI in there so that you can have a parameter AI avatar that you talk to. I'm sure that's coming. I don't know the exact date. It's coming soon. They've already beta tested it. And then, of course, the create and edit tool allows you to take any asset from their library of like 2,000 objects. You can use those, or with your enterprise version, you can upload some of your own 3D objects and bring those in. Also, that applies to environments.
School signs up for us to deploy to them. But for a lot of you, you've seen this, so I'm not going to spend too much time here. Engage is by far the most stable platform for multiplayer content creation and use in the world. It's got a PC VR, so you don't have to have a headset. It's accessible on all devices, even the mobile phone. You can join in on lectures. Educators can build a lecture live, an event. They can have a persistent session for their students, and they can create their own content just by simply doing recordings without code here. So I can click record, I can record my lecture, and then I can save it as content. Now I can also take a snapshot like I did in this campfire space. Let's see, campfire learning. I'm going to load that snapshot. I'm going to load it in the original location. Let's see, snapshots.
Oops, I did
so as you can see here, I had we built this little educator space for kids to learn about the different animals in the forest. This is the red fox, and each button comes up with a different media. So I click there, I get the YouTube, and I can start sharing for the whole class up there.
So that's my menu I'm seeing, but then the class can see the media play up there.
So now the whole class can see the
we're at the 40 mark, so I'm just going to kind of quickly skip forward a little bit. You can bring in 3D animations in here also, so that obviously you just saw the media I brought in, But if we're using virtual reality properly, we want to bring in interactive 3D animations also. So that can be done in here too.
Today we had one question in the chat from Lydia.
Yep.
So what opportunities does a teacher have during a class in VR? Is it possible to control the current app or something else? Like sort of activity in VR. Maybe Lydia, you can clarify this question.
Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm sorry. This question was to the previous section when you showed us Manage XR and possibility to establish your own dashboard with apps and videos. And I was curious, is there any possibility for a teacher to see current activities in a classroom? What students do they have problems? What apps do they use to understand if everything okay?
Yeah, no, great question. And I'm going to answer it in two ways. In the Manage XR platform for the MetaQuest 2s, you can see all the activity of any of the headsets in your fleet. We call it the fleet of headsets when we deploy it. So from a single computer, you can see all the students have logged in. If there was an error on a headset, it records it. You cannot stream with the MetaQuest 2 for a variety of reasons, but with the HTC, you can. So with the Manage XR, and if you run an HTC headsets at your school, you can use that Manage XR platform to actually view what's being viewed in the learner headsets at the time it's being done. So you have a whole bunch of different views in a dashboard, but not with the MetaQuest 2. MetaQuest 2, you can only see an analytic of text analytic of what's going on and who's logged into what app, if there was an error, and if something else is going on. Now, inside of a space like this, like I was saying, you can either be in there with them live, or what we've had some schools do is when the students go into their space, if the teacher wants to walk around the classroom, physical classroom, and monitor, they can be the student can cast those to a device. So the device can be sitting on the desk, and the student could be casting just for monitoring purposes. Now, that's something that we haven't seen a lot done, but it's an option, because to get all the casting set up and make sure it's going properly, we start running into barriers in the classroom and tech difficulties on the Wi-Fi. So it can happen. My recommendation, always just join with your students in the class. Like what you saw here, the entire class can be pre-recorded. And just like I'm pausing in VR, you can pause the class recording and talk with your class, have interactive things, get questions. And so after you've recorded your lecture, you can reattend your own lecture, not have to worry about doing anything except being there to pause and talk to your class about the subject you're looking at.
Victory XR content with that license, and you get to sign up as a subgroup school underneath the academy, which means you can bring in that content and you can create your own and save it as snapshots and content recordings. So I think you get the idea. Education becomes the ability to, these are primarily aimed at 8th and 9th graders. So I'm going to take you into this. I don't know if many of you have seen this, but for 8th, 9th, and 10th graders, this is an amazing chemistry, physics, and STEM app. It's called FutureClass. It's one of our partners, and they have gamified chemistry learning. And I'm just going to show you the.
I'm going to try to zip because this takes a minute to go through, but I'm going to.
And that the periodic table is the list of all known atoms? Your smartphone, for example, is made of 75 different elements from the periodic table. The goal of the game is to learn the fundamentals of the atom structure and the periodic table by creating the models of different atoms using the 3 particles: protons, neutrons, and electrons.
Take the proton gun and shoot it to make helium. Helium has 2 protons.
Make hydrogen from helium by removing 1 proton. Remove a proton by pressing the orange Remove One button.
If the correct atom is made, check the answer. If you need more information, press the buttons on the. An atom is a very small particle which is.
So you get the idea. You go through and create these different experiments. You go through and have these different experiences. There's probably a library of 15 to 20 now. This is just the introductory one here, but kids love it. We piloted this in a few spaces in the US, and it just makes learning about this stuff much easier, the bonds, etc. Future class plans to continue their growth into 10th, 11th, and 12th grade learning, and I look forward to that. This particular one does not have content creation inside of it, but I thought it was important to show for because people are oftentimes looking for exciting ways to engage with chemistry. So I'm going to jump forward here. This is our University Explorer app. What I want to tell you is if you have, this is free, okay? So we don't charge for this. It just goes in our deployments. But what I'm always looking for right now is content. So colleges or departments or private high schools, if you have 360 content that you want other students in the world to see in terms of like advertising your school, if you get that over to us, we'll just put it up. There's no subscription, there's no strings attached there. We just want to put the 360 content up for students, for the students to see more of it in the world, for educators to have more access. That is, like I said, we struggled in the beginning if we wanted to be a foundation or a profit. But anyway, I just want to give students access to the things that are out there in one place. We did the same thing with job shadows. So you can do trade job shadows here. So arborist, utility tech, welding. We've compiled a list of 50 of the top needed trades. And of course, I've got a global audience on here, but we did our trades in the US because we're short on labor and trades, period. And so we want kids to know that when they graduate high school, they could just go do a 2-year trade school or a 2-year program or an apprenticeship. And honestly, high school students just aren't aware of the benefits of the job and all of that. So we're doing the same thing. If you know of companies that want to put their 360 recruiting video in front of students globally or in the US, reach out to us. No strings attached. We'll put it up in the app. We just want students to have more access to knowledge. Let's see. Come on. There we go. So the next one I'm going to show you, I'm kind of skipping quickly here, but is if you haven't seen 3D Organon yet, it's an anatomy app that's pretty amazing for exploration.
All of the different anatomical structures of, so right now we come up just with the skeleton, right? So if I click, I can remove the top of the skull and the mandible, and I can even go as far as each tooth being named. Now if I go over here to the right, I can see the skeleton.
These are all different systems that are available to take apart in the same way I just did the skeleton.
I can look at as a school, joints, muscular, various organ structures, and then if I cruise over here to the left, I can change my environment. There's the pass-through, so you can kind of see the AR stuff. So if you were in a physical classroom, sometimes the pass-through is important. And I can change it to the Organon lab, which is probably one of my favorites just to be in. I can change what I'm looking at. So let's look at the vertebrae. Oh, so then here's the vertebrae. I can pull out the anterior spine. I can pull out very particular, like the T10 vertebrae, L2 vertebrae, and explore the human body.
We're running short on time, so I'm going to go ahead and skip forward. You can always reach out if you want to see more on these. And
we're going to be heading into
I can
body swaps.
Send you
and
that.
If you've never experienced it here, I'm going to pick mine.
So I'm going to be real quick here. If you haven't experienced body swaps for soft skills for students, it's great. It's interview practice. It is difficult conversations. It is DEI. It's healthcare practice. What happens is you're asked a
to
question,
discuss my resume.
and then
So,
you give an
start
answer
recording.
back,
3, 2, 1.
and it swaps, and you're given feedback.
Hi, my name is Jay Schnoor, and I am here to apply for this job. And now I get to see myself speak.
And she did ask a question of me prior to that, so she's not just sitting there, but she asks a question, I answer it, then you get analytics on how you did at the end of, oops, let me grab those analytics to show you. So here's a couple of the demo activities: public presentation, job interview, practice providing feedback, spot non-inclusive behaviors, super interesting one. There's a group of 4 people that start talking over each other, and you need to interject and as a manager and say how we might have been a little bit more inclusive in that discussion. So great soft skills educational app. And then if you haven't seen the dissections
Our teacher gives
that
us the
are for high schools from the Victory XR Direct,
tutorial.
It's pretty amazing. You get to sit here and dissect a variety of different animals: shark, pig,
So she goes
frog,
through and talks
cat,
about the various features of the
invertebrates.
amphibians.
This is the classic frog here. So I'm going to just kind of speed through that. Cut it open, snip it, etc. And then there's
So
a
here, when I come in
VXR Labs
again,
is coming out with new
you buy
CTE
a
stuff.
license for each of
Super
these. You have
interesting
CTE
for
tech, CTE
certification.
trades. We have welding and carpentry.
Drone
Let's
certification,
go to tech.
robotics,
robotics
in some of
and
the trades.
drones. Arthur is a great platform for WebEx.
So I'm going to go ahead and pause that. Now, in terms of what we've come across out there, and please, I want to hear from you, is why I definitely wanted to leave time here. And that is what we've come across for teachers to actually build content, usable content. We found Engage is great, Arthur, Spatial, and Frame. Frame VR XR could be we found a little bit glitchy. And so we haven't been able to do too much with Frame. You can create it, but it seems heavy on the computer. A university level, spatial.io is great for creating that content, but you got to be a little bit savvy if you want to create your own environments and objects. Whereas Engage, it's all in there. And if you want stuff uploaded, you just work with us and we get that all into your uploaded platform. So at that point, I want to open up the floor and I want to hear about some of the stuff that you guys have seen that has been successful for content creation. I want to facilitate a little bit of that discussion before we end in 8 minutes.
All right. First of all, thank you so much, Jay, for this presentation. That was amazing. I already have so many ideas floating up around my head on how to actually use this in the classroom.